Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, April 28th. LA Galaxy 4-2 losers. That's right, 10 winless now for the LA Galaxy on Sunday night. We're going to talk a little bit about that game, get you updated on all the things the players said. A very frustrated Marco Royce coming in the post-game, so we're going to hit on some of the things that he talked about and he said. We'll cover that, and then we'll talk about what this schedule looks like for the LA Galaxy coming up, and can they pull out of it? Will it matter whenever they do finally figure out how to win? Do they hate losing? According to Marco Royce, they don't hate losing. I think they hate winning, because right now they're not doing that. So we'll talk about all the stuff that happened at the stadium on Sunday. Some good, some bad, some ugly, but that's what we're going to do. Mr. Kevin Baxter is off covering hockey once again. So he is out traveling. I believe he's making his way back towards LA right now. So hopefully he'll be back for next week. But we'll keep you updated on his travel schedule. So that means that for 2 weeks in a row on a Monday, you are stuck with a solo Pato. I don't know if that's good for you. I don't know if that's bad for you. Let me tell you about my weekend a little bit. Did have a very successful weekend, even though it rained on my train meet that we had. We had about 150 people down at the train club. It was a lot of fun. I was exhausted. I've been at that train club, and then I raced up the freeway to make sure that I made it for the Galaxy game. I will say a little bit more calm on a Sunday evening whenever they're giving out the Cosmo bobbleheads and all that fun stuff that was going on. So, I think if you're talking about a win, I thought the Cosmo bobbleheads went fairly well. I don't think anybody got yelled at. I don't think anybody had really awful things to say. And I think most people that wanted a Cosmo bobblehead, I know there were only 5,000 of them, but I'm pretty sure you got what you needed there. So hopefully that was the positive part. Now, that's not true. There's another positive part. And I want to touch on that as well. Pre-game, they had a little tribute to Tranquilo and Julio Cesar Davila, who we've been talking about on the podcast, who I had limited interactions with, but I knew of him and was around him for a long time. They had a great little tribute and a round of applause for Tranquilo. I know that there are a lot of people who are close to him within the LA Galaxy organization. You could see that just by how nicely they honored him, and the referees were wearing black armbands for him as well. So again, positives, right? Unfortunately, these are all positives before the whistle blows, right? And I'm trying to even put into like how do you go back and sort of frame the LA Galaxy this season? You look at what they did in the offseason, and you knew that there was going to be, at least they would have to try and recreate some magic that they had last year, right? You get rid of Mark Delgado. We talked about it ad nauseum. Dejan Joveljic, Gaston Brugman for cap space and everything else that you're trying to do. You were trying to move contracts and move things around. So the LA Galaxy did what they thought they needed to do. You brought in somebody like Lucas Sanabria and Elijah Winder, and you've sort of went into some guys like Nascimento, who you knew were going to be a bit of a project, right? And maybe Sanabria more of a project as well. So you see the LA Galaxy going out and trying to do these things, and I think there was hope, and I think that there was understanding that the system still remained, and that the LA Galaxy understood it at their core how that system still performed. And even without Ricky Puig, and knowing you weren't going to have Ricky Puig for most of the season, I think there was hope that you could recreate some of that magic, right? That all the magic wasn't gone whenever you lost, Mark Delgado, whenever you lost, Dejan Joveljic, because when we're talking about Gaston Brugman, I think he played about 1,200 minutes last year, right? So he wasn't a big reason for the LA Galaxy's success, but you certainly liked him coming off the bench, and you look what he did in MLS Cup, and that will never be forgotten, right? So Brugman in there, and then Delgado's been the one that the Galaxy have missed the most. Cerrillo, I think, is doing everything he can at the 6, and they're asking him to do a lot more, and he needs a good partner with him. I think, ultimately, when you had somebody like Mark Delgado and Greg Vanney talked about it so many times, that you had this guy who could create space and create time, and who worked back on defense so hard, and you always made sure that the defense was protected. In turnovers, he knew what space to be in. He's almost Greg Vanney Jr. out there whenever it came to the system and how it was operated and how to operate within it. And so, you lose a lot of institutional knowledge whenever Mark Delgado goes up the street to play for LAFC. And if you see him, this is a guy who's playing every minute for them and doing a pretty good job of it. Still, I think, settling into their system. So that's a big loss. And knowing what I know, and certainly talking to the people I've talked to, is it would have been difficult to keep him, even if you were able to create some cap space, just because I think of the contract that he wanted, the length, the money, and where the LA Galaxy were financially for that. So, you lose that. Now you have to go back, and you're asking, Edwin Cerrillo to take a real big step forward. And it's almost unfair, because if you watch Edwin Cerrillo in this game or in any other game, positionally, I like it. I like a lot of his decision-making and the things that he does, but you want more from him. And you're asking now, without somebody like Mark Delgado in the midfield, without a Ricky Puig who's able to create and move space, you're asking him to do way more than perhaps you wanted to ask him to do. And so now you're having to get these guys level up. And that's sort of the part that is difficult, because you're asking some players to level up in a system that is made to be played in a very precise way. And, certainly we can have a discussion about Greg Vanney's, higher level system and whether or not that is approachable on a regular basis for, the LA Galaxy to be day in, day out. You can go back in the, just in the last years and see how the Vanney teams have sort of played, right? And so, when they've been good, they win an MLS Cup. When they've been bad, they have been, flirting with disaster, with not making the playoffs, which they didn't do. I think 2 out of the first 3 years he was there. And now you're looking right now at a team that is currently, wooden spoon eligible, which is crazy. You guys can't do that to me again. All right. I don't want that in my house. I don't want it around me. I've told you before, it's like a Harry Potter Horcrux. It has bad juju. You don't want it anywhere near you. Okay. So something has to be rectified. And here's the crazy thing is, and Eric was texting me earlier today too, and we were talking about the whole deal, sometimes even texting during the game. And it's sort of like, we could play any podcast that we've had in these first 10 games, and it's basically the same thing. Did the Galaxy absolutely get outworked and outplayed? I thought remember Hammer on Thursday was saying, hey, the Galaxy need to be blown out. And then that'll really get them. That's what it needs. This whole moral victories, we're close, the whole deal. And so the Galaxy were on their way to getting blown out, and it's 3-0, right? I mean, we can talk. Let's get to the starting lineup, and then we'll go into this. But bottom line is, the Galaxy fought back, and again, even losing 4-2, you sit there and say the momentum was on their side in the second half, and that game probably should have ended at 3-3 whenever you can sort of balance things. I think if that penalty kick doesn't get called, the LA Galaxy probably end that game 3-3. Maybe they even win it 4-3. Maybe it's the turnaround they want. But if you're the LA Galaxy, you can't expect to get a call. You can't expect to get a foul called. The inconsistency in refereeing this season has been atrocious. Just in terms of how they're calling fouls on the same teams on the same day. Joseph Paintsel probably could have had 2 penalty kicks, if they're going to call the penalty kick that eventually got Portland to 4. But if you're the LA Galaxy now, here we go. All right. just to wet your whistle on some stats, just to sort of be like, hey, Josh, how are the LA Galaxy different than last year? The LA Galaxy right now, in 2025, and don't excuse the hair, I need a haircut. It's a whole discussion thing going on right now. In 10 games this season, the Galaxy have led for a total of 62 minutes. 62 minutes. That actually sounds, if I told you the LA Galaxy had been leading for 62 minutes this year, you would be like, no way, where did all that time go? Like that almost seems like it's more, because in now 9 out of 10 games, the LA Galaxy have allowed the first goal. They've only played with a lead for 62 minutes. That was in the game against Orlando when they scored in the 14th minute and the game was tied in the 76th. Those are your 62 minutes that the LA Galaxy have led so far. Just again, the LA Galaxy have led for a total of 62 minutes, and it all came in one game. All right, 10 games so far. If you're looking at the LA Galaxy so far in 2025, through the first 10 games in 2024, the LA Galaxy scored 21 goals. Through the first 10 games in 2025, the LA Galaxy have scored 8 goals. That's a 62% decline in goals. They are scoring 62% less goals. Goals against, 17 goals through the first 10 games in 2024, 20 goals in 2025, so about a 17.6% increase in goals allowed. Not that much, quite honestly. 3 goals difference right now between 2024 and 2025. So I will agree wholeheartedly. The defense is not helping out the offense. Certainly allowing 4 goals to Portland is not something you want to do. But if you imagine the Galaxy allowed 4 goals in this game, and they were only 3 goals off of 2024, then you can understand, once again, I think we know where the problem lies. It's in the offense. All right. And the offense not being able to think about this for a second. The LA Galaxy have only been able to score from a neutral position or a tied position, right? From the start of a game once. Once this year have they scored from a neutral position. Right? They've only had a lead for 62 minutes. So we know that the only time that they had a neutral position was whenever that first 14 minutes of the game against Orlando was when they were able to do it. So all the other goals the LA Galaxy have scored this year have been in coming from behind, which means a non-neutral position, which usually means that if you're a Galaxy player, that you're cheating on offense, right? You're cheating on turnovers. And Greg Vanney talked about that, I think, in either the midweek press conference. I say midweek, I think it was Friday. Either in the Friday press conference or whether it was after another game. But he talked about how they were cheating last year too, but they were just able to outscore people. So whenever they would get scored on, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And now they have to. The offense hid the flaws of the defense, or in the team defensive philosophy last year. Right? Now there's no hiding that. The Galaxy have only scored once this year from a neutral position. Everything else has been chasing, and when you're chasing, usually you're in an overcommitted position going forward. All right? So that tells me something as well. The LA Galaxy so far through the first 10 games have been shut out 4 times in these first 10 games. Last year in 2025, they were shut out 4 times all last year. So 0-4-0 this year in games they were shut out. Lost all 4. Last year they were 0-2-2 in games they were shut out. So they had 2 scoreless draws in there. The LA Galaxy lost 8 games all of last season. And this year they've lost 7 games in their first 10. This is the LA Galaxy. This is where you're at right now. I don't think, obviously, I want to tell you that I see a team that plays, that fights, that wants to win, and that usually ends up self-destructing in some way or another. I think there's probably an argument you could say about whether or not the LA Galaxy were really finally run off the field in this Portland game. But at 3-2, you can't tell me the Galaxy weren't ready to score another goal there. And the fact that they're able to score so easily, too. We'll talk about, sort of what happens whenever that comes in. So we'll see, that's what you sort of see leading into it. But you go into the starting lineup of this game. McCarthy, Yamane, Garces, Zonka, Nelson. The big deal here is that in the defensive side is that Maya Yoshida was on the bench. And he eventually did play, even though I said I thought it would be pretty unlikely that he would play. Those Galaxy scoring those 2 goals in that second half probably allowed Greg Vanney to play Maya Yoshida, but he's back. I think that will help the defense. Quite honestly, I'm going to say this. Getting Yoshida and Zonka back together is probably going to be something that might save the LA Galaxy and might get them a win in their next 3 games, all 3 of which are on the road, right? Extremely difficult. You're asking the LA Galaxy now to go out there and do something that I think is they've dug themselves such a hole, such a giant hole, that you go on the road and you have 3 away games on a 3-game road trip, and you now have to expect a result. I was sitting next to a journalist from Copenhagen in Denmark, and he was great. We had a good time, sort of talking about the LA Galaxy, and he was there to cover and talk to Zonka. And I've had my interactions with Zonka. I think he's a great guy. I actually don't think he's as bad as a defender as everybody thinks he is, and certainly not in this game. But no, he was sort of looking at it. It was fun to see the Denmark reaction to like the pregame DJ sets. I'm like, I go, do they have pregame DJ sets in Denmark? He's like, no, they don't. I'm like, I kind of figured that might be the case. The fireworks, the anthems. It's very Americanized whenever we start these games, right? So it was interesting to see him there. But to me, I was sort of pointing out some of the LA Galaxy players to him and how they sort of fit in and stuff like that. And just watching Zonka play in this game, I will tell you that to me, the problem in this particular game was Emilio Garces. And I think it has been here for a little while. Just not committing at the right time, not chasing things down. The first goal is a really good example of that. I guess I should probably finish the starting line. This is what happens when my mind jumps around. Anyway, you go through the defense with Zonka, Nelson. It's Parente, Surreal, Fagundes, Peck, Ramirez, Paintsel. Fagundes actually did drop into the 10 a couple times. Vanney moved him back outside to try to find him some space. I think Portland did a good job of shutting things down. And Portland's sort of front 4 that they had on the night were very good. We're ridiculously good. DaCosta, Kelsey, Moreno, and Anthony, right? So Anthony had a great game. So Portland was sort of firing, and I think that was sort of limiting, Fagundez's impact on the center of the field, and seeing that. But for me, this comes down to Parente. It comes down to the fact that Sanabria isn't playing. And I think that's a question that we sort of have to start asking ourselves is what is Sanabria capable of doing? And he comes in and he sort of plays into the 6 role, which for the first time is probably sitting next to Alex as well. And Alex and I were talking about how, you bring in Sanabria and he plays in that, 6 spot, that holding midfielder, that defensive midfielder. And all of a sudden you start to see something. And all of a sudden you're like, that's probably a more comfortable position for him. You're not asking him to go. Getting Cerrillo off the field was probably good. Just so many minutes on the legs. Getting Diego Fagundes off, so many minutes on those legs. Being able to bring in Marco Royce. But on the first goal, the Galaxy get opened up a little bit, but Zonka closes down at the near post. That ball gets cut across, and Emilio Garces doesn't go chase the ball. I think he just expected it to go out, and it stays in. Then you had Yamane, who had to go over, and now he's running out at a defender or at an attacker, and he's got to bite one way or the other. He picks the wrong way. The defender goes down, but then again, it's Emilio Garces who doesn't go out and close down the ball. He's just sort of like slowly heading out towards the ball, like he didn't already have the line covered. You want to force that ball, hopefully, either towards the line or back, so that way it happens, and Garces doesn't close down the play. Ball gets chipped over the top, and Parente doesn't track anybody. And Parente, by the way, had probably his worst game this year. There wasn't a lot of good out of Isaiah Parente in this game, and I've actually been a pretty big believer in him. But I didn't think this was his game. He didn't have it for whatever reason. He was in the wrong position. But the first goal gets scored. McCarthy is having to guard between, because it's such a wide open shot. You don't know whether that ball is going far post, near post, or anything else. I would love for John's big, right hand to be a lot stiffer. And it just didn't happen. And the ball goes in the back of the net. So you're like, okay, fine. But I'm going to blow your mind here, because I couldn't believe it either. It's 1-0 at halftime, folks. This game isn't over. There's no panic. There should be no reason to understand. The Galaxy had created some chances, not coherent attacks in that first half, right? No shots on goal. A bunch of block shots. Paintsel was dribbling into traffic like he was on the 405 freeway in the construction zone. Just constantly cutting himself back into, and Portland was good at getting another guy in there. Peck for that same thing, cutting to the inside, constantly sort of moving that and watching Portland players slide over and try to block those shots and get in the way. And Portland did a good job. I think they ended up having 5 blocks total. I mean, shots are even for the two teams. Roughly, I think the Galaxy had one more shot, but they had 5 block shots, right? So you're seeing that, and you're seeing that develop. But the first shot I think is in the 54th or 55th minute is whenever Parente, finally gets played into a really good spot thanks to a back heel by Miki Imane in that right-hand corner. It springs Peck. Peck is able to open and find Parente at the top of the box, and he hits a weak little dribble. That should be a goal. That's a ball that needs to be put in. And it doesn't matter if you're Parente or Harbour Miller or anybody who gets put in that position, that ball needs to be in the back of the net. Or it needs to certainly test the goalkeeper. The fact that he, sort of skids it and it's an easy save. You finally have a chance in this game. You're down 1-0. You have a chance to put one away, and you don't. And then now here comes goal number 2, right? And the ball that is sort of passed through. That's the Parente ball that drives me crazy too. The ball's coming through the defensive or the offensive zone for the LA Galaxy. Parente has a chance to get it, hop on it, pass the ball out of it, and he gets his foot to it, but there's no physicality in his challenge. There's no physicalness to sort of get in the way of the attacker who's going to try to take the ball away, and he easily gives the ball away, and now it's on a counter. That ball gets crossed right behind Zonka, and if you are a big, tall center back and you are running towards your own net, you're already in trouble. Everything is already going bad, and that ball skips right behind him as he's running, even as he's trying to slow up to get to that ball. It goes through, like 2 guys. It was a great pass, and then gets buried in there. And so now you're losing 2-0. The 3-0 comes off of just ridiculousness. A wonderful shot, but still the LA Galaxy slow. Zonka rotates out. Garces has to come into the center. He doesn't put any pressure. The ball gets fired again. It hits the top underside of the bar. It goes in. You're losing 3-0 in the second half, and I know there are people who got in their cars and left. And by the way, at halftime, I was thinking about. I was joking with the people who came to him, like, if you guys head home right now, you can get home. It's going to be still a nice Sunday evening. Don't turn on the TV. Just let it go, because you don't have faith in the Galaxy that they're going to be able to come back from these, right? So you see that. Now it's 3-0. Marco Reus is on. You're putting Sanabria in there. In fact, we can even go to, did I pull the game? Yeah, here it is. I just want to make sure I get my subs right. You have guys like Marco Reus in there, and things started to change. You had Aude come in for Parente and, Sanabria for Cerrillo, and you're sort of trying to figure out how these things are all going to match up and line up. And all of a sudden, the LA Galaxy offense starts ticking, right? And all of a sudden, things start happening. And they had one almost before the 3-0 goal, right? That was the one where Paintsel got played in and got blocked and sort of stumbled on the shot, but it was the first ball that sort of played him into space running at the goal. And you're like, maybe there's something there. Then the Galaxy allowed the 3-0 goal, right? And you're like, okay, that was probably the one that broke the camel's back. That's it. It's going to be over. All of a sudden, you get your goal from a great pass. You get Ramirez to Royce, Royce to Paintsel, Paintsel back to Ramirez on the sliding kick into the back of the goal. For all of the, and I think rightfully so, the criticism that sometimes get heaped at Christian Ramirez, I'll say this. If you put the ball where it's supposed to be, Christian Ramirez is going to score goals for you. And the Galaxy have failed to do that this year. All right, failed to do that on a regular basis. Christian Ramirez now has 4 goals in the league because they haven't been able to feed Christian Ramirez. That's it. Because if you saw the ball that was played, and it was a really nice ball, Ramirez starts it, Ramirez to Royce, Royce to Paintsel, Paintsel to Ramirez. That's all it took. It was direct. It completely split Portland open. They had no defense, no chance at it. You get Joseph Paintsel running into space, and all of a sudden things start happening. What do you know? You put the ball on the ground, and you get these guys running. How many times last night did we see floated balls being passed into Gabriel Peck where he would have to stop and win the ball out of the... What is going on? And I know Greg Vanney has talked about this. So it can't be Greg Vanney saying, oh yeah, I want you to lob the ball to Gabriel Peck. No, find the ball on the ground, play him in behind, and let him run at people. Just like you did with Paintsville, and the reason that the Galaxy were able to score is because Marco Royce put the ball in that played the ball forward on the ground into the path of Joseph Paintsville. This isn't hard. And the fact that the Galaxy can't figure this out on a regular basis and certainly can't do it from a neutral position, right, where it's 0-0, you're at the beginning of the game, and you want to score first to be able to put all the pressure on the other team. They haven't been able to do that because almost immediately after, the LA Galaxy are again able to put a ball on the ground, Christian Ramirez through to Marco Royce playing a little bit inside. There was a little header in between. I forget who it was that headed the ball down to him, but it was a header, a little give and go. Ball comes back to Ramirez. Ramirez through the line on the ground. Marco Royce scores. Second goal for Marco Royce, his first one since his debut game. That's the Marco Royce that the LA Galaxy need. That's the thing that the LA Galaxy need. They need Marco Royce. So now they're up 2. There's going to be a Marco Royce point at this where I'm going to get probably, it's going to sound like I'm going to get a little heated on it, but I want you to hang in there with me. So we'll get to it. It's post game, but I want to get to it. So now the Galaxy are rolling. The stadium is popping. The momentum is there. The Galaxy are flying. Portland is scared. Portland does a line change like with 4 guys in a substitute pattern. You're like, oh, this is interesting because Phil Neville's really going to have to pile in behind because now it's 3-2. This game is all LA Galaxy. Portland doesn't have an answer, and the game is on. And by the way, that's the most dangerous we've seen the LA Galaxy look, and it was because Marco Royce was on the field. They finally had somebody who could maestro the ball in the center. So yes, you are all of you screaming, it's the midfield, stupid. Yes, it has been the midfield. We know that, right? You were hoping to be able to find something with Diego Fagundes. I think Portland shut that down pretty easy, but they couldn't shut down Marco Royce. All right, and certainly against tired legs, Marco Royce can win that. So he buries his one. So now it's 3-2. Then comes the penalty kick. Well, I have a lot of thoughts on the penalty kick. Marco Royce, and this is even the stuff I was going to talk about. Marco Royce doesn't want me to talk about the penalty kick. He wanted to talk about the play that led to the penalty kick. And I think Marco's right. It's just a free kick. It's just a ball over the top. Zonka, Garces, anybody? Hello? Anybody want to pay attention? Or it wasn't even Zonka back there because I think at that time it was Yoshida. It was Garces chasing the ball, not paying attention. Guy gets behind him. All of a sudden now he's chasing behind and they call a penalty kick. All right. Now, I watched that entire game. I saw ridiculously soft fouls being given. Not really in one direction, not in both directions, by the way. Right? Joseph Paintsville was fouled at least 3 times, 4 times, and was not given a foul. I don't know how you can go and look at this penalty kick where the ball comes over and Garces probably brushes by the backside, and Marco says, you know what, it's a penalty. We shouldn't even talk about it. It's a penalty. What happened in the play before that led to the penalty? Amiro Garces. So if you were playing the home game, Josh will score at this, that the first goal was Amiro Garces. The second goal, I'll allow to be, a good goal. Again, that pass that comes right behind Zonka is a really difficult one to deal with, but the bottom line is the Galaxy are already chasing backwards. The third goal, Garces doesn't even come out to try to even stop the shot that's coming in. Now, banger of a shot, 100%. But now Garces is in here, and he makes... I hate to call it contact because I haven't seen one replay that shows me that there was actual good contact in it. And you have a referee who really likes to be the showman because this is the same guy. It's Filip Ducic who had the however call, right? If you're watching the VAR and they go, this guy is offside. However, there was a foul on the pen, like the whole twists and turns that we see. They call a penalty kick on that. Marco can say we don't have to talk about it. But again, I haven't seen a replay that shows it. I asked a poll reporter question, and let's put poll reporter question on. I will say that this was an inconsistent game, that the level of officiating didn't even come close to matching the level of the game, that fouls were left on the table that could have decided games, and instead a non-foul was left to decide a game. All right. So I wanted to know what everybody saw that led to the penalty kick, because to me, I watched the replays and I didn't see much. So it should be a case of VAR saying, you know what, maybe there's nothing here. Maybe we should look at it. Maybe the level of contact, if there was any, wasn't strong enough to bring down the player. So here is my exact question. I just want you to be very sure this is exactly my question that was submitted. Now, I submitted it along with the other two pool reporters that are with the LA Galaxy. We all talked about it, and then I submitted it. I've told you before, and I will tell you again, I take nothing more seriously that I do than being fair and reasonable with these pool reporter questions. I'm not asking biased questions. I will ask if Portland had a controversial call that we needed. I will ask that too. I want to make sure that you, the fan, get the information from the referees, and the referees have a chance to make themselves look better whenever there are clearly questionable calls going out there. So the question was, in the 75th minute, the penalty kick was called for the Portland Timbers for a foul in the box by Galaxy's number 25. What contact did the referee see to determine there was a foul? And what specifically did VAR see in the call to not overturn it? Now, I know some of you are already jumping ahead. Don't read that yet. Stop. Pause. On this show, in pregame, I told you that I sat in on a pro pool reporter a symposium that was supposed to show us how to do this new way to submit pool reporter questions, which, by the way, I really like. So as far as that's concerned, 100% in. I have to email. I don't have to stand outside the referee locker room, although, good Lord, I would have loved to, just to be able to ask a follow-up question. And we were told that the referees want to answer these questions. They want to get their side of the story out. They want to be able to explain what they see, because, you know, they don't get a voice in this, and this is their chance to get a voice. Okay, then let's start answering the questions. I don't think there's anything wrong with the question. Maybe you guys think that maybe I wasn't specific enough. Maybe I could have asked it in a different way to elicit a better answer. I agree. I talked it over with two other reporters. We felt that this was a good enough one. By the way, most of the reporters in the press box said, why bother? You're going to get a bad response anyway. And I said, no, let's ask and let them give the bad response, because they this year want to be better at communicating with people. Here is the response we got. LA Galaxy number 25 committed a foul by kicking the Portland player in the back of the leg. He did not play the ball. The VAR did not see a clear and obvious error. That's what the VAR, that's the answer that you want for VAR. Okay, because if you go back and look at this and you watch the replays, the contact is negligible at best, and this changes the game. So this is the explanation that you want. The VAR did not see a clear and obvious error. How about the VAR looked, saw the contact on the leg, deemed that there was enough contact for the call to be good, right? And therefore upheld the call or did not ask for a review. How about you give an actual answer? Because Pro came out, and this is I want you to know, I'm a big fan of referees. I always have been. My dad was a referee growing up. I really want them to be better at this. I want them to be able to explain themselves. This isn't it. All right? This is not it. Okay? This is nothing. This is, why did Josh bother to take the time to ask the question? This is the type of answer that makes sure that I don't ask a question in the future, because why bother? Okay? So we're lacking that accountability. We're lacking that information, because that's not a coherent answer. Certainly not on a call of that nature. Yes, it's a bottom of the barrel team right now for the LA Galaxy. But watching the rest of, I should have asked why Paintsel didn't get a foul in the box twice, because there was more contact on both of the Paintsel fouls in the box than there ever was on this last one. All right. So it has to be better. Galaxy end up converting that penalty kick. That kills the momentum. Everything is gone. Greg Vanney. So let me take you to the post game now, because we got a shift. Okay. Yes, Maya Yoshida had a chance to score a goal. It went off the bar. I thought the Galaxy had a chance really to score a couple more goals in that. And so finally you see everything coming right. Some people said, it took him 3 down to wake up. No, it took Marco Royce getting in the game for the Galaxy to wake up. My focus for the LA Galaxy in the postgame was really with Greg Vanney asking, how do you get Marco Royce on the field more? Is he capable of giving you it? And Greg's basically, we need him to be on the field. I asked Christian Ramirez the same question. Marco Royce again got mad at me because I think I asked about the penalty kick, and he's like, don't talk about the penalty kick, talk the one before. Marco's frustrated. I thought Eric, and I apologize, Hammer, if I'm blowing you up and making Marco Royce come after you. But the Hammer texted me. Let me see if I can get it exactly so that way I can I want to make sure that, the whole deal, that everybody understand, I want to get it right from Eric so that way he can say, yeah, I said that. But he goes, Marco's acting like he just showed up a week ago and he's shocked the team is no good. Yeah, Marco, they've not been good for this entire season. So how about you come in and figure that out, right? The LA Galaxy need to have someone of Marco Royce's capability to be on. And anybody saying that he didn't absolutely change that game, you weren't watching. All right, stop it. You're a Marco Royce hater because, Marco Royce isn't going to do anything. That was only his second goal. He came on and all of a sudden the LA Galaxy had offense. All of a sudden Joseph Paintsville is dangerous. Coherent attacks were running through Marco Royce. It's what the LA Galaxy have been missing. But you need somebody out there for at least 80 minutes. And can Marco Royce now give you that? Right? And somebody was saying, it's great to have Fagundes in there for, 60 minutes, get all of Fagundes for 60 and then Marco for 30. And maybe that's how it's going to have to play. All right. But Marco Royce is the reason the LA Galaxy were suddenly dangerous in this game. And he needs to play more. All right. But he also has to take a real leadership role on this team. And he can talk about how the LA Galaxy don't hate losing, which I think is an interesting take. Or he says, the level of training has to be up. Cool. I'm all in on that. But he now has to take ownership of this team. It's his team. It's Marco Royce's team. And I don't know if he can make it. I don't know if his body can hold up. I don't know if he's able to do that. But we were talking afterwards. Greg Vanney was saying some things. And so one is we had two young kids in who got to ask questions because it was youth and sports night, right? It was kids night. And they told us ahead of time that they were going to have two young gentlemen, Jeremy and Landon, by the way. Outstanding kids asking questions in front of all those people. I was nervous as like a 27-year-old, and you have like 10-year-olds in there asking questions and doing all that stuff. But they were asking, by the way, the first question that they asked to Greg Vanney was sort of like, hey, during this losing streak, what do you do to make the team? Like, it was a pointed question. Go back and watch the press conference. Greg was like, we were all laughing. We're like, oh man, that's actually that was a pretty like sharp question to be able to ask. It's great. So they asked those questions. And then I was waiting for my response back for the referees. Take it back to the referees. I was waiting for the response back from the referees. And so I got that response while I believe Scott French was asking his questions, and we knew that microphone was going to Damien, who was back behind me. So I wanted Damien to see the answer before he talked to Greg, so that way he might ask Greg about it. It might be in his, like the whole deal. And so Greg finished kind of a little bit quicker than I thought he was going to. So I'm still holding the phone up to Damien, and Damien's still reading. And they sort of went to Damien, and Damien goes, I'm sorry, I was looking at the, he goes, sorry about that. I was reading the response from the referee. And Greg Vanney interrupts. He goes, there's no response. He goes, there's no response. They're never wrong. So it doesn't matter. It's impossible. Like, how do you get better if you can never look in the mirror and say, maybe I need to get better today. And look, we need to get better with the group. And I can stand in front of you and tell you it like it. Can't they come in front of the media and say, you know what? We need to get better. That wasn't good enough because today it wasn't good enough. It's not good enough for this level, and they need to accept it and own it and say it. And then we'll have more respect for the situation when they also sit up in front of us and they like say, hey, we need to get better. Hey, we need to do better. So do they? So do these people that are in charge of running, helping the game to flow smoothly and giving the two teams the best equal chance to win the game, they need to be better too. So it's always nice whenever I told Damien he got the best quote out of Greg. He probably also got Greg fined, I'm guessing, without actually asking a question, which was really good for Damien. So we're in post game and we're sort of talking about that. And again, I asked Greg about Marco Royce and whether or not you can keep him on there, and he says you sort of going to have to and do those things. So that's the take on the referees and all that stuff. But that's why have poll reporter questions if you're going to get, crap like that, the answers like that? I'll be honest with you. It's frustrating. We want actual real answers. We want to understand. So show it. So help people understand. All right? Dude got tons of social media attention because he pulled a however in his last VAR announcement, right? And on this one they can't really even explain what happens in the play. I don't know. That just, in a game-changing play, you need to be able to say it. 100%. 100%. So, the Galaxy have so much work to do. And it's crazy because this is still the same team. And I know people, and I will, if you come up to me and say, it's still the same team, they should be better, I'll argue with you. And it's like, it's not the same team. But it is the same team. Right? It's the same team. By the way, Zoo, $5 super chat. Killing these solo shows, man. Alex, the branch manager. I saw Alex, the branch manager. Alex, I was in the same branch tonight that we first met. Or today, I should say, around 2. I looked for you. You were not there. Actually, I think it was like maybe 1-ish. Maybe you were out to lunch. Maybe you weren't there today. Adam, $5 super chat says, Josh, is there any reason to have confidence in the Galaxy for the rest of the season? No, Adam. Or would you suggest to look forward to the 2026 season? No. We've talked on this show about one of my favorite movies, Elizabethtown, right? We've 100%. We've talked about Elizabethtown. And it gets horrible reviews, just horrible. My wife and I bonded over it whenever we were dating, and it's a stupid movie. It has some good things. Laugh and death and laugh right next door to each other. Sometimes you have to get lost in the sweet melancholy of the world around you, right? And it reminds me of that movie because it's sort of to understand the good, you have to understand the bad. So no, you don't have to look forward to 2026. You need to get deep, dark, down in the depression and, again, the melancholy of the 2025 season. Because I have a team that this team has not shaken me in terms of like, oh, they're not going to turn around. They're going to. Something's going to happen. Although I would like to say that I was sitting in the press box before the game and I was looking at some of the other reports. I'm like, it has to be today, right? Like they can't lose all the games. They can't go 0-34. And Damian was like, no, they're going to have some draws, right? I thought that was good. The whole deal. They need to do better, but you can see it. Tell me that the team that scored 2 goals in 2 minutes on Portland can't do that on a regular basis if you get somebody like Marco Royce in there pulling strings. I think they're just missing the talent in the midfield. And I think that talent opens up guys like Christian Ramirez, who said in the postgame, he goes, I swear, when the Galaxy win a game, I'm requesting him I don't care if he didn't play. Because he said, man, I would love to just be like sitting in front of you guys after a win. He goes, I didn't think it was going to be like this. Christian Ramirez asked sort of what he was going to say to the fans. The Galaxy put up the quote for it is like, we're going to get through this. I love it. It feels like we're on like the Poseidon Adventure or something like that. There's a throwback for an old movie that's not that great, but people loved. But like, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. So, we're starting to see, a little bit of here and there where you're like, things are starting to come together. I think Yoshida getting back will be good. I think Zonka playing next to him will be good. I think Garces has to sit on the bench again for a little bit. One of the most talented players on the field, and you're going to sit him on the bench. And I'm here for it because he's not putting in the effort. He's not putting in the work. He's so talented he's one of those guys where you sort of sit there and go, he's only had to rely on his talent, and now you have to actually rely on your game skills and how you close things down and the smarts that you're playing with. And Garcis's future $15 million transfer to somewhere in Europe is on the line if he can't figure this out. And the Galaxy have to figure that out. That's Greg Vanney trying to figure it out. I know there's people asking for Greg Vanney to be gone. I'm just not there yet. And I don't know that I will be this season. I know that's probably upsetting to some people. Oh, I get it all the time, especially on Reddit. Good Lord. Oh, Josh just is an apologist for everyone. No, I'm just looking at Greg Vanney and what he's capable of doing. I still think he's one of the smartest coaches in all of the league. But he has to be able to implement. And right now, this is a real test for him. He talked about shaking this up, going to try some different things, going to move some things around. Marco Royce may be one of those things he's going to have to try from a start, and you're going to have to see if you can get 65 minutes out of Marco Royce, because if Marco can play, now you're going to give up a whole bunch on defense, but if Marco can play, and maybe it's Sanabria and Cerrillo behind Royce to be a sort of double defensive backup for Royce and allowing him to be just a 10 in there and finding spots and moving all over the place where he wants to be, maybe that's a way to go. Because I'm telling you right now, there's nothing wrong with Christian Ramirez. As soon as Marco Royce came in, all of a sudden Ramirez was involved in the game and was scoring goals and providing assists. Christian Ramirez deserves your respect right now. Dude is fighting. Scored more goals than anybody on the team right now. But again, the Galaxy down, 62% on goal scoring or something like that? That's crazy. Barry Blast, $5 super chat. Ramirez has been class on the pitch and off. Listen, I know that in press conferences, it doesn't come across. If you just listen to his quotes, he doesn't seem like he has this and Christian, I don't believe this. I'm just talking about how sometimes you're perceived that there's nothing, there's something behind the eyes. If you're watching him, whenever this guy cares, he wants to be here. He wants to be playing for the LA Galaxy, and it is killing him that they can't win a game. So Ramirez isn't the problem. Fix that midfield. Fix the midfield, and you're going to go. There were talks that the Galaxy, there was some behind the scenes clamoring that perhaps the Galaxy were looking at moves to bring in by the end of the window, but I don't think anything lined up in the way that they felt comfortable. Still expectations that there will be a move this summer, but all of a sudden the summer feels real far away, right? May is going to be a bear whenever we look at the schedule and everything that's going on. My whole thing with Marco Royce is, and sort of to Eric's point, is he's real frustrated all of a sudden. He's real angry, and he's this was the first game that he's impacted in a long time. So go out there and show it and show the leadership. That was sort of the part where I was like, okay, that's great, Marco, but you have to be the guy. We said it in the preseason, Marco Royce has to be the guy. He's going to have to step in. You're going to have to play him more than you wanted to. And then he got hurt, and then he wasn't playing, and then there were question marks about whether or not he'd even come back. Patrick, by the way, calls me out. And Pato, you keep saying the defense isn't the problem right after they give up 4 goals at home. The D is not good enough. So you're talking about the midfield, right? The midfield's not good enough on the defense. Because that's where the problem is. Go back and watch the scramble play. The scramble play for the first goal. That's a defensive. First of all, defense goals are scored on defensive mistakes. That's how that works. But go back and watch that defense. Again, Garza's not transferring out, and I think that if we look at the beginning of the season where perhaps I thought the Galaxy's defense was a little more stable, you had Zonka and Yoshida next to each other. Patrick, here's the thing, is that I can say that the defense isn't the problem right now because I know that the Galaxy are scoring 60% less goals. And that the Galaxy midfield and the Galaxy offense is putting the LA Galaxy defense under a lot of pressure. And unless you have the best defense in the league, you're not going to be able to sustain that. And right now, the Galaxy don't have the midfield defense to be able to play that. And they don't have an intelligent defense like Amiro Garces in the center that is helping them out. Put Zonka and Yoshida back in there, and I think you're going to find that it'll be a little more stable. I also think that in order to increase the offensive side of things, that you need to play Julian Aude instead of John Nelson. All right? That's going to hurt your defense, but it's going to increase your offense. And right now, I need the offense to be a little bit higher than the defense. So, for me, that's why I'm saying I can look at this and say, hey, the defense gave up 4 goals, 100%. It's a lot of individual mistakes, and I always see defense as a system. So maybe that's where my disconnect is. Maybe that is. I see like Zonka on the first goal. He closes out the line. The ball gets crossed across. It looks like it's going to, possibly go in, but he at least closes down the angle. He does all the things he's supposed to do. He almost collides with McCarthy. He gets up, pushes McCarthy back into the center of goal almost because he's like, hey, we're still playing. And then we watch Garces not run for the ball. So to me, it's an Emmy problem more than anything. You want to fix the defense, take Emmy out, put Zonka and Yoshida next to each other. I think you're going to be more stable. I'm not going to say they're not going to get scored on. Just saying I think you're going to be more stable. My guess is the goals per game go down with those guys in there. Again, I would also put Julian Aude on the left side. I would let Mickey Imane get forward a little bit, and you're going to have to start trying to seed the offense a little bit more. At least in my opinion, you have to seed the offense more. 8 goals in 10 games isn't even close to good enough. It should be double that. And the Galaxy offense has been so poor that they've put too much pressure on the defense. So that's where we're at. That's where it is for me. I get it. And that's fine. You're talking to a former defender, right? I am always going to be on the side of the defense. I will acknowledge my biases, okay? But Emmy has been a problem back there, and I think he's going to continue to be a problem back there. Gary, by the way, $2 super chat. Believe. Greetings, y'all. Y'all gotta believe. See, Gary's on it. He's like, just believe. Again, you can look at the LA Galaxy, 3 points in 10 games. You can look at, here we go. Let's go to charts real quick. Because it's fun. Why not? We got charts. This is the worst start the LA Galaxy have ever had. They are only 3 points, by the way, 3 points worse than their 2023 start. Not that anybody should be real excited about 2023, but 2023 team was right there at the end of the playoffs. And they're only 3 points back from them. Looking at the Western Conference, you can't convince me the Western Conference has run away from the Galaxy yet. Galaxy are 10 points from 9th place. Okay. There's Vancouver, and then there's like everybody else. All right. Portland right now in second after beating the LA Galaxy, right? Lucky for Portland, they get to play the LA Galaxy twice in like the first 2 months of the season, 3 months of the season. But that, Austin, who the Galaxy just lost to, is in 3rd place. Apparently... Remember last year we were talking about how your schedule gets easier whenever you're a better team? When you're a bad team, it seems like you're playing all the good teams. The LA Galaxy are playing all the good teams right now because there isn't a worse one. And certainly, again, I'll go back to my Sasha question. The standings tell you where the LA Galaxy are. 15th place in the Western Conference, tied for the bottom with Montreal. All right. So, But you can't convince me the LA Galaxy, if they only have to make up a 10-point gap, that they couldn't do that. There's a lot of 6-point games that are coming. Gary says, $2 super chat, favorite type of pie for the holidays? Trick question. It's a trifle. I like tiramisu. Thank you. Have a nice day. Otherwise, apple pie. Maybe basic. That's fine. I am a Black Forest cake lover, though. I think that's my German heritage, which I just recently learned. I am like, between German and Italian, I am a quarter German and Italian. I'm almost 30% German in that, or almost half, I guess I should say, German and Italian. I'm like 35, 25 or 35, whatever it is, 15, something like that, between those two. Tim asked $2 super chat. Hi, Josh. How do we get Peck back to the 2024 level? Find somebody who's going to feed passes. And also, Peck needs to not try to do everything himself. Cutting into the inside is good, but you also have to... See, that's the other thing that I've sort of been kicking around with Yamane. Yamane, why did the Galaxy open up Peck and almost score that first goal? Because Yamane was up forward and overloading and then had the backheel pass. He was causing problems. He was up there. And I don't feel like we haven't got enough of those two running together to cause problems. All right. So, what did I just tell you? That the LA Galaxy, haven't scored a goal from a neutral position outside of the one time against Orlando, right? And here I am almost advocating and have been now advocating for somebody like Julian Aude on the left-hand side, which puts you in a non-neutral position. Like, that is definitely an overcommit forward. Miki Imane, throwing him up the wings, that's an overcommit forward. And how many times last year did we see Miki Imane tucking into the 6 role more? And that's something we haven't seen a lot of because I feel like the LA Galaxy don't have the offensive threats and they've needed Yamane up on the offensive side. But again, you want to talk about a defensive sort of thing that's been hurting the LA Galaxy. It's probably been Yamane not sliding into the 6. I just thought about that while we were doing it. Luffy, $2 super chat. Let's see some Tucker, a little Lepley action. Listen, get some Lepley in there. Get some Harbor Miller in there. Mauricio Cuevas, somebody we haven't talked about, had a impactful game. I'm not going to say great game, but he had an impactful game. All of a sudden, you put Mauricio Cuevas on the right-hand side, and the cross is coming. He puts in a nice cross. I will go back to my frustration. Floated balls to Gabriel Peck. No, Stop it. Either drive it to his feet so he has something to play off, or play him into space on the ground, or play him into space with something driven, or put a driven ball in. Stop floating these balls outside the post to guys, and where Gabriel Peck's like playing a center for the Lakers and having to like back in down the lane. It's wasting his talent. Play him on the ground. Play him through. Right? And Darren says opponents have had a year to understand Peck, and they know he will cut inside. Yeah, but last year they knew he was going to cut inside too, Darren. It didn't matter because the Galaxy had runners coming in. If he cut inside, he'd pass the ball off, or he would overload it onto a Yamane who was coming around the right-hand side. He would cut that ball back against the cut-in, and then all of a sudden the ball's back behind. How many times have we seen the LA Galaxy get behind defenses this year? What, like 5 times? And 3 of them happened in this game? Marco Royce needs to be on the field more. In summation, to end my PowerPoint today, Marco Royce needs to be on the field more. That's the thing I'm going to tell you. Marco Royce on the field more. Julian Aude on the field more. Craig Vanney's already messing with things. He doesn't need to listen to me. I'm just, my 2 cents. Julian Aude on the field more. Yamane able to get up and around Peck more. I think if you're Vanney, you have to overcommit, and if you overcommit, who you're going to drop in? Well, then maybe Sanabria and Cerrillos. That way you can set 2 in front of a defense, because you're going to lose one, wide fullback up the right-hand side whenever Yamane goes in, or if you have Aude up there. I mean, did you saw Aude dribble people and start creating space and creating passes and creating problems? I love me some John Nelson. If you need that, and by the way, this is such a diss, and I don't mean it to be. I love me some John Nelson, but if you need that vanilla defender, John Nelson's your guy. And right now we need a little like rocky road. We need a little cookies and cream, right? Are we ready to take like a deep cleansing breath? Like, what we have to light sage? I don't know what needs to happen, but a sacrifice must be made at this point. The LA Galaxy now approaching their longest winless streak in franchise history. 2 more games, and they're going on a 3-game road trip. 3 more games, and 2 more games, the LA Galaxy would tie 2008 for a 12-game winless streak. They are currently tied with 2017, which had a 10-game winless streak, and 2006, which had a 10-game winless streak. All right, this is the longest winless streak of Vanney's tenure: 4, 7, 5, and now 10. And that will keep mounting. And the problem with him is that I think the pressure really relieves once they start winning some games. And it's not even like, oh, well, you have to make the playoffs in order to stay great. No, they know what the system has been built from the ground up that includes Greg. So if you're going to change things, you have to know that he's not any good for this team or this organization anymore, that he has no value to it. And I don't believe that's true. But this number, this 10, that could be 11, that could eventually be 12, is going to start really pressing on them. We look at the schedule as it goes. Kansas City this weekend. That's Kansas City, 4 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, I believe, against the LA Galaxy. And then the Galaxy going to New York Red Bulls, so rematch of MLS Cup. So that will be on May 10th. Then the 14th, it's the Philadelphia Union and the LA Galaxy. That's a little 4 days after, so a little midweek time for the LA Galaxy playing in Philadelphia, which is usually the case. That is a 4:30 p.m. start time, I believe midweek, so that'll be a fun one. Actually, is that the weekend? Let's see, 5-4, and then that's 10 days. Yeah, I think it's in the midweek. I'd have to go back and look. You guys can check me in the chat room. And then it's El Tráfico. Wouldn't it just be like the LA Galaxy to be winless through, what is it then, 13 games? 13 games, and coming into El Tráfico and doing something stupid, and then they have to go down to San Diego on May 24th. So that's one that, again, rivalry, and then it's all the California rivalries. It's LAFC, it's San Diego, then it's home to San Jose, then it's home to Real Salt Lake. That is 4 away games. A 7-game month again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It seems like too much, doesn't it? At this point, do you just want to be you just want to go be done? Ramirez at an 8.4 rating, Paintsel at a 7.7 rating from FOTMob. Anthony, by the way, 9.3. That's a massive number. Kid had a great game. John McCarthy at 4.5. That'll make John feel good. Any other questions for Super Chats? Probably now is your time to get them in. But I'm interested. The whole hate to lose thing too by Marco Royce. We need every game. We need every day in training mentality. It starts in training. And I say to the guys last week, the training has to be with more quality every single day. Because when you play with more quality in each of the trainings every week, every day, then you can do it from this weekend. So you can do it for the weekend. So, John, of course we need more mentality. Yeah, and we have to hate losing. But in the moment, we don't hate losing. It looks a little bit like this. So we are. We have to be frustrated before the game, not after the game. So, like I said, we are not in a good position. We are, again, with the small details, and it's not like we lose. We lose because the other team was much better. No, it's because we did mistakes. It's part of football, yes, but unnecessary mistakes. So if we can stop this, then we can start winning. But we have to stop this. That is the Marco Royce one that everybody is certainly quoting. It's again. I don't think it doesn't feel like the end. It doesn't feel like the beginning of the end. Maybe it's the end of the beginning. Isn't that how it goes? This isn't the beginning, this end, and then maybe it's the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning. The Galaxy have a 3-game road trip to sort of go out there and just let her fly. Ramirez, by the way, was sort of advocating after the game for letting it fly. He was, I don't know, whenever he sort of said, leave it to a striker to be like, I think we just need to throw things forward and be unpredictable. It is funny. The Galaxy scored 2 goals in again, what I think Matt Doyle would call a tactics free zone, where the Galaxy aren't necessarily into a tactical matchup trying to force a tactical advantage on somebody. They're just trying to force anything and allowing anything to go forward. And they were really successful at that last year because they had so many offensive weapons. It's just less. And Ramirez was sort of like, we need to throw things forward in unpredictable manner. He goes, of course, then you open yourself up on the defense. It's like, yeah, of course, that's what happens. That's what happens. Maya Yoshida getting a yellow card for talking about the penalty kick, by the way, was laughable as well. I'd just like to point out, you have a guy who has the captain's armband. Yeah, you can certainly say things, but Maya Yoshida is allowed to be frustrated in that moment, and it was almost like the referee was like, no, you're not allowed to be frustrated. How dare you? The LA Galaxy will play again, like we said, coming up on May 4th against Kansas City, 4 p.m. Pacific time is your start. That's where the pub crawl is going to be and all sorts of stuff. There was one other thing, though, I wanted to get to, and this was during the game, and this was it was embarrassing. But the homophobic slur chant was back at Dignity Hill Sports Park, and we haven't got to talk about that recently. I'm sure I'll have somebody tell me that I don't understand what I'm talking about and all that. I'll read you the statement from the LA Galaxy. It's a statement on behalf of the LA Galaxy regarding fan chants from Sunday's match. The LA Galaxy and Dignity Health Sports Park strongly condemn the use of any derogatory language targeting an individual or group. The offensive chant heard toward the end of Sunday's match is unacceptable and in no way reflects the values of our club. The behavior is not part of who we are, and it will not be tolerated. We are firmly committed to creating a safe, inclusive, and respectful environment at Dignity Health Sports Park, one where every player, fan, and staff member feels welcomed and valued. 4 times? Did we hear it 4 times? I thought we heard it 4 times. That's what I remember. 4 times. I have been around long enough to know the sections that we're doing it and to know that, yes, there are some season ticket members in there, but it usually is a lot more casual. I don't want to use that as a scapegoat for this because it just can't be tolerated. Michael Rajo was on the PA announce during the game, I think 3 times, maybe 4 times, to cut it out. It's unacceptable. It has to stop. And unfortunately, the people who do it probably don't care enough being there to worry about the consequences of not being invited back. That being said, it's, do what you can. I know my listeners will do what you can. My family is an LGBTQ plus family. And I always want to make sure that people are as comfortable as they can be at games. And it's that simple. So, I think we should probably refrain from using that. I think common sense tells us that that's probably just not necessary. I'm also somebody who says that you don't necessarily have to play the national anthem before every game as well. That was the reporter from Copenhagen next to me. I was like, do they play the national anthem before every game? He's like, no. I'm like, yeah, I didn't think so. Patrick, $10 super chat. Hardest working podcast in showbiz. I'm not so sure about that. Hashtag COG. Hashtag clean sheets. Hashtag road wins. Hashtag nothing to lose. Hashtag not in 13th. I added the not in 13th. I thought it needed one more, Patrick. So, I always implore everybody, let's be better. The LA Galaxy have to be better on the field. Greg Vanney said you have to step in front of people and say better. I will say on this podcast, I need to do better. We need to do better on this podcast, explaining things to you in a way that is entertaining and fun and understandable across a large range of understanding about the soccer landscape. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we've been trying to do for 17 seasons. So we need to do better. I need to do better as a poll reporter. I need to ask better questions. I also need to do better as a poll reporter whenever we get crappy answers like this to sort of stand up and say these are crappy answers. Maybe someday they'll cost me. I don't know. I think that it's just the least amount of... I get to sit in front of Greg Vanney and ask him a question, and for the most part, he has to answer my question. Otherwise, not that he ever wouldn't answer a question, but I put fair questions and I expect fair answers. I put fair questions to the referees and I expect fair answers back, and we're not getting that. So you guys, as the fans, are getting screwed out of understanding what is actually going on. It's plain and simple, right? And it's so bad that most reporters across the league don't even want to bother with this thing. So that needs to be fixed. So I need to do better on that. The LA Galaxy, Greg Vanney said, I have to stand up here and say we need to do better. So he knows the LA Galaxy have to do better. Marco Royce is expecting better from everybody in training. The fans are expecting better. I was talking to Tom Braun about stuff, and the acknowledgement of, hey, we can do things better. We need to do things better. We need to try to do things better. I think that goes through everything. I think if you live your life that way, that is the way it goes. We'll certainly see. Adam, $2 super chat. Who's your host on Thursday? Adam, I love the fact that you think that I am planning days in advance. Usually Thursday morning, I start texting people and finding out who can go. So that's where it is. But so as fans, then y'all need to do better, right? We need to do better with the chant. And I'm not saying it was anybody in our chat room or anything else. It can't happen again. Need to figure that out. Do what you can to rectify that situation. I know the Galaxy are serious about it, 100%. So, don't get kicked out for that. It's just not worth it. Although, I wasn't joking when I said Sunday at halftime. Maybe everybody just goes home and, you'll have a nice Sunday evening and you won't be, stressed out about the whole thing. I think it was my good friend, Chris Tucker, Zero Cool. And he was like, oh, I forgot what it was like having 11 men dictate my mental health. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's how that goes. The whole deal. So that's where we sit right now. It's a very busy month for the LA Galaxy. Crazy, ridiculous busy. We're going to try to do some things in this month. So buckle up, stay tuned, be ready to go at a moment's notice. We're going to do. I want to get together with some people and hang out. That's basically what I'm at. All right. So we're going to try to figure out how we do that in May, which has 7 games, without my wife trying to kill me. So we'll figure all those. The LA Galaxy facing off against Sporting Kansas City. We'll have the preview of that game coming up on Thursday. Hopefully you found some of our stats entertaining. Hopefully you found me mildly entertaining as a solo show. Once again, we will hopefully not have to do this again as Kevin gets off of hockey duty and back onto some COG duty, of which he gets paid $0 for. So that's where we stand right now. Anything else? Let's see. Last calls. All right, we're good. Everybody shut it down for a little bit. Take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale, put on that Zen music. I'm digging Forrester. By the way, Goldfish was great. Give me some saxophone solos all day long, every day. Have you seen the guy on TikTok who adds saxophone solos to just pop songs and stuff like that? I am here for it. I want it. I want more. I thought Goldfish, by the way, excellent choice whenever you're talking about Ted Lasso and everything. I thought that was it. I thought it was going to be Goldfish for the rest of the year because of how it was going to go off. But no, not yet. The Galaxy just aren't ready. They're not ready yet. They don't hate. Marco Royce got it wrong. They don't hate losing. You're right. They hate winning, and they just need to flip that around. They're going to figure it out. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, go look at go back and watch MLS Cup because it'll make you feel better. But you know what? If it's a bad day, go watch MLS Cup. It'll make you feel better. All right. That's it. Let's get on out of here. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on any of his social media, aka Baxter11, doing a lot of hockey coverage with the LA Kings. Oh, they were up 3-1 and somehow came back to lose a game. Oh, we're watching them in the playoffs. Lakers in the playoffs, but Kevin's covering that. So LATimes.com is where you can find him. And at KBaxter11 on his socials. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at at Galaxy Podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com. And then, of course, head on over to YouTube, on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, all those places where you can find our show, Corner of the Galaxy. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell them how much you love this crazy guy who talks to himself for an hour and 12 minutes on a regular basis. All right, Gary, $2 super chat. Rad show, Josh. Thank you. For Gary, who's always awesome in the chat room, for all of our listeners who are always awesome in the chat room, for saying hi everywhere, all that thing, for Mr. Kevin Baxter, who's on the plane right now. I am Josh Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching to our little Corner of the Galaxy. Corner of the Galaxy from the box. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.